Merrick Kane alongside Brent Hubbs, and going to welcome onto the show Jake Rowe of DawgsHQ, the On3 affiliate of covering Georgia. And of course, there's a big one coming up this weekend, Tennessee and Georgia. Jake, thanks for joining us, man. How you doing?
I'm good, fellas. How are y'all?
Doing good.
Doing really well. Obviously, not the outcome Georgia wanted this past weekend, falling to Ole Miss 28-10. Knowing how important of a football game this is coming up against Tennessee, college football playoff, chances hanging by a thread for, if you want to look at it, for Tennessee too, potentially. How big is this weekend, and kind of where's the fan base right now? Obviously, Sunday night coming off a loss.
There's nothing good, man. Not as far as fans go. It's one of those things. Listen, we all look at each other's boards, I think, from time to time, and I think I saw a Tennessee board after a win earlier this year at some point. I can't remember who it was, but it was all doom and gloom. And listen, I get it. They care a lot. And Georgia got a taste of its own medicine on Saturday. I was thinking after that game, I was listening to Lane Kiffin talking the press box. They were playing the sound over the press box, and I was like, man, I've covered some of these games. I've covered the other side of some of these games where you go into the big one and Georgia just kind of suffocates the other team, and they got a taste of what that felt like on Saturday. Ole Miss was better, outplayed them, outcoached them. And Georgia's got to go back to the drawing board. They get to come back home, though, which is somewhere they haven't been in a month.
Yeah, I started to say a night game at home is a nice nice way to kind of bounce back if you're Georgia, because you haven't had any of those anytime soon. What's the bigger concern for you covering this team, Jake, as you come out of this Ole Miss deal? Is it the fact that Carson Beck is struggling the way he has struggled? Or was it the physicality that Ole Miss played with against Georgia's run game and kind of what Ole Miss did in the line of scrimmage? What's your overriding concerns for Georgia coming out of that loss?
I kind of came away from it fairly a little bit more encouraged. Carson was taking better care of the ball. That was the main thing with the previous games, was the interceptions. He was coming up with a drive and making plays. I don't think Carson's playing at his best right now, but I thought he took some steps in the right direction on Saturday. I'm more concerned with just the offensive line in general, Brent, because Ernest Green's playing left tackle right now. He's got no business doing that because he's banged up. I don't think he practiced all of last week. If he did, it was very little. Dylan Fairchild's banged up at left guard. He's starting to get a little bit better. They're playing their third, fourth option at right guard right now. They've had to play their second-string center. I know I'm preaching to the choir on offensive line injuries here because Tennessee's had their fair share too. But the thing with Georgia is it's kind of hit them all at once here, and it hasn't stopped. They thought they were going to get Tate Ratledge back, and he just keeps kind of aggravating and can't quite go. Micah Morris went down last week against Florida. They've kind of lost him for a little bit. Both of those guys are right guards. Xavier Truss has played like 3 or 4 different positions for him again this year after doing the same thing last year. Monroe Freeling's flipping and playing between right and left tackle. He's never started a game in his career, but now he's got a lot of snaps under his belt. And it's not just the run game. They're having a really tough time protecting too. And when they do get things going, they had 2 or 3 really successful first down plays against Ole Miss. A couple of them to start the drive, they have a 5-yard penalty to pull them back. And honestly, Brent, I feel like I'm saying some of the same stuff that Tennessee fans have probably been saying about that football team all year long.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, line play is so challenging. And I think in the day and age of the transfer portal, it's even harder because I think that's a position that's hard to bring in a bunch of fix-it guys, right?
It is.
Because you got to get continuity, you got to get chemistry, they got to learn your system. I wonder if the offensive line struggles, what kind of effect that's had on Carson with his eyes and maybe some of the recklessness with his football. Do you think that that's something that has bothered him? That's a question we had from one of our guys here in the chat. Do you think the offensive line and the lack of clean pocket has caused him to maybe be a little more reckless or a little more loose with the ball?
Yeah, I think so. I thought if you look at some of those throws, they were ones where Carson's got to do something with it a lot quicker than he wanted to do something with it. And, just sometimes you make a bad decision. No quarterback plays better under pressure. I do know that. Not a single one. You're not going to find their numbers being better under pressure than a clean pocket, not over a long period of time. So that's definitely played into it. I think also some of it's just pressing. This is a guy that came into the season with high expectations on himself. Listen, when you come back with a big price tag in NIL, the player knows it. They know it, and they're less professionally and emotionally mature than a 28, 29-year-old who just signs a brand new contract is to handle that and the pressures of it. And I think all of that's kind of gotten to Carson. It's the growing pains we're going to go through this whole thing. And I feel bad for him because I think Georgia fans and even fans on top of that, Carson was flashy with it, right? And that's the price you pay. But I feel bad because you talk to people in the NIL space and they're like, this kid's not a diva. He's not really into this. He's more into kind of football and doing his own thing. But he wanted a chance to kind of make some big money coming back. And so all that's kind of getting thrown up in his face right now. But I will say that Carson, like a lot of quarterbacks, has been a much better quarterback at home this year in limited opportunity and especially last year. So that's something, especially taking care of the ball better at home. He's got one game in his entire career where he has more than one turnover at home. So that's something that maybe he can lean his hat on, but he's going to have to get some protection, some help from the offensive line.
Jake, we talked a lot about the offense. Let's look at the defense. Georgia's always, just producing talent at the NFL level, the defensive line, linebackers, all three levels really. A couple of performances this year, obviously a really bad half against Alabama, a really, really bad football game against Alabama overall. But 28 points to Ole Miss the other day. You look up and down the schedule, and they've obviously played very, very well at times, but they've given up some points in some other games. So tell us about this defense a little bit for those of us that haven't watched Georgia every single weekend.
It's kind of whack-a-mole with them too a little bit. It's like it's a different issue here and there. It's pass rush not there this week. The giving up too many easy throws the next week, giving up too many explosive throws. Missed tackles were an issue early in the season that kind of came back and haunted them a little bit against Ole Miss. I would say if I had to point to one aspect of this team, I think it's got a very strong run defense. It's not a dominant run defense, but they really do a good job of kind of figuring you out and kind of keeping you from hitting a lot of big plays on them. Much better than last year's run defense that Tennessee got to see on the first play of the game last year. But they've been more consistent in that regard. They've shown the ability to kind of pull out pass rush on demand a little bit. They did it against Texas. They did it early against Ole Miss, but Ole Miss kind of solved it. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but ultimately a very talented defense that it's really tough to score on them when they get into the red zone. Ole Miss had some stuff, tough times with that. It's up and down. But this defense doesn't really have, I don't think, an identity. I just think it's one of those teams. They go out there and they just kind of let it all hang out. And sometimes they're going to make a lot of havoc plays on you, and sometimes they're going to kind of give up some plays. But they fight hard, and they're tough to kind of punch the ball in the end zone on.
Jake, this feels like a Kirby Smart, like tailor-made Kirby Smart week. He's they're going to be behind Tennessee in the playoff rankings. You're coming back home. This is going to be, everybody's coming to steal your lunch money. You know what I mean? That this is the circle the wagons. Everybody's kind of against you. They've written you off for dead. He seems to thrive in these moments with his program. Why do you think that is the case? I know that's an easy way to motivate kids, but how does he make that work the way he has? And do you see this as that type of game with him?
Yeah, I think they'll try to pull those strings. And Brent, I think when you combine, I'm always leery of being that guy who covers a team and talks them up too much. Like you guys know, Brent, you've done this for a long time. You just – I know you probably kind of went in and out of this, man, and it's kind of one of those things that's like, but Georgia prepares hard, and sure. I think everybody knows that now. Those Tuesday and those Wednesday practices are very hard, and I think when you can add on top of that the doubts, the nobody thinks you can get it done, everybody thinks you're going to lose this weekend type deal, that when you can heap that on to very detail-oriented and very intense preparation, you just get a level of focus out of those guys, and they end up being more prepared for the moment. They end up being excited for the moment because they put in that amount of work and get there. And I think that's where it kind of comes in. but ultimately, and that's where it's sustainable, right? That's where it's not, hey, the first big play of the game or the first big rush of adrenaline and it's gone. Your preparation kind of lasts for 4 quarters, and that's where it's kind of come through. It's the line on this game blew me away. The last time Georgia visited Sanford Stadium, they were a 10-point dog. Now they're a 9-point dog, and I know Tennessee was the number 1 team then, but Georgia was a lot better than it is now. And I guess Tennessee may be too, just top to bottom. I don't know, but that one's kind of got me, thrown me for a loop there, because I really feel like Georgia needs this to be a low-scoring game to win it. And I'm sure Tennessee actually feels the same way.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tennessee's going to go into Georgia and a place where it hadn't played well the last couple of trips down there, obviously. To come back with all that momentum, still being just a 1-loss team. What does Tennessee need to do to exploit Georgia on Saturday to come away with that win?
Whoever plays quarterback, whether it's Nico, which I feel like it probably will be, or whoever, they've got to hit those downfield shots. Honestly, if you want to talk about Tennessee's chances to beat Georgia the last couple of years, a couple of those early ones would have gone a long way. Not 2023 so much, but 2021 and 2022 there and in Athens, I think they missed some chances. But I think Tennessee, if they're going to beat Georgia in Athens, they need to hit some of those deep shots. I've watched Nico this year, and he's missed some, but when he's hit them, it's looked like, man, I don't know if anybody in the world could have defended that pass. That was something special. And I think they got to let Nico loose in the run game a little bit, which, when you're battling injury, I don't know which way they'll go with that, but Georgia can kind of struggle a little bit, especially when they jump into man coverage, lose a little bit of contain. Quarterback Jackson Dart did it the other day. That's the only reason Ole Miss had respectable run numbers. He ripped off a 30-yarder just kind of waiting for Georgia's coverage to run off. And I think Nico has the skill set to do that too. And obviously, if you can get the run game going there with Dylan Sampson, nobody's been able to stop it. I'm not saying Georgia's going to. I just think it's probably going to be one of the tougher challenges he's had. Doing it on the road, it's always tougher for O-lines to play on the road. Doing it on the road, it might be a little tougher for him too. But I think, what is it, like 9 out of 10 100-yard games or 8 out of 9 100-yard games for him this year?
Yep, all but one on the road at Oklahoma, Brent.
Yeah, and that was just kind of Tennessee trying to get home a little bit there. He's been terrific, but Tennessee has not run the football against Georgia. Tennessee's run for 2,000 yards every year Josh Heupel's been here, but the team they haven't run the football very well against is Georgia. I know they ripped off the big run last year, but you take that big run out of there.
Yeah, you're right.
Georgia. After that, there was nothing happening in the run game.
And low key, Georgia hasn't run it against Tennessee either. Georgia's kind of come in with some good run games. And last year, the Georgia's run game was clicking. It was on fire. Kendall Milton was rolling. And I think that was the only team kind of down the stretch that was able to kind of do that. They did it in 2020. Did it in 2022 as well. Even then, they even forced a fumble, and Georgia didn't run it all that great then. So it's both of these teams have had trouble getting the ground game going the past few years.
And I feel like for Tennessee, they've got to run the football. If they can't run the football effectively, it's going to be really hard down there. Where maybe Georgia can get away with not having an elite run game or a great run game in this one. Where do you think Georgia is, before we let you go? Where do you think they are from a playmaker standpoint? I know, like everybody, Mike Bobo, I'm sure, is a whipping boy today for the Georgia fans. Every time they see the Baltimore Ravens do something innovative, suddenly it's Mike Bobo's not good enough, right? We've seen a few of those threads bouncing around all fall. But where do you think they are from a playmaker standpoint on the perimeter? Kind of go to make a play in a critical situation. Where do you think they are offensively right now?
Kirby, here's the thing, and I actually talked about this today. I'm glad you kind of broached this topic. Kirby has had this offense at Georgia. It's a Kirby philosophy. This is not a Mike Bobo or a Todd Monken. This has been Jim Chaney, James Coley, Mike Bobo, Todd Monken, all of them. They want to throw the ball to the open man, which everybody does, right? Nobody wants to throw the ball to a covered guy. But they want to say, all right, you're going to do this, we're going to throw it here, or you're going to do that, we're going to throw it here. And that's great in theory. I think a lot of offenses work that way. They all have that element to them. But Georgia is, because of, they came into the preseason, and a guy Tennessee recruited, Ra Thomas, gets booted off the team before preseason. And Ra's a good ex wide out, and a guy that brought a physical presence to them. Well, you're okay because you got Colby Young. You brought Colby Young in from Miami. Well, Colby Young goes and does something stupid off the field too, that they're trying to get the charges dropped and everything on that right now. Don't know if he's going to be back, but you lost the guy that was kind of okay, well, he'll step in for this guy. They don't have a Cedric Tillman type of challenge, like catching the football in 50-50 situations right now. Dylan Bell can do it, and he is their best playmaker at receiver. And I think they've got to do a better job of finding ways to get 86 the football. And not necessarily from a, hey, is he open standpoint, but hey, let's run this quick slant out of a stack formation and get him open, get him a free release. I think they've got to do more of that because he's the guy that's consistently, making plays for him. Dominic Lovett is too. I mean, he's a good player, but I think it would be one of those two. I will say this though, when Carson has needed a play against Texas, against Florida, to go ahead against Florida and to get the drive going against Texas, he's gone to Arian Smith. So they've got. I think Georgia's got weapons. I mean, I don't think this coaching staff has got the most out of this group, and I think sometimes that just happens. I'm not saying Mike Bobo's not a good coordinator. I think he does a pretty good job most of the time, but it hasn't worked for him in this offense this year. Not with Carson Beck, not with anything. But Georgia's one of the best teams in the country at generating 20 and 30-yard pass plays. So they can generate plays in the pass game. They've just got to play cleaner football, and they got to figure out a way to get people blocked. And Tennessee's not a great recipe for trying to figure out how to get people blocked right now. They're pretty good up front.
Yeah, talking about Mike Bobo, Tennessee fans' favorite assistant coach of all time is Alex Golesh, and he's no longer here, so that's the reason for all the issues. Dylan Bell also a massive game against Tennessee a season ago, so he's going to be a guy that the defense is going to have to key on. Jake, thanks so much, man. If you're a Tennessee fan, a member of Volquest.com, and they want to know all about Georgia, what do you guys got coming up this week over at DawgsHQ? Man,
we'll have a lot of content, dude. We'll talk X's and O's for Georgia. We'll talk X's and O's probably for Tennessee. Do that, kind of with our DawgsHQ Plus show, which you can see over on our website, or through written stuff. We'll have news on Georgia's injury situation all week long, and kind of what Kirby has to say. And, we'll try to do it. Listen, we try to wake up every day over at DawgsHQ saying, can we do it as good as Volquest does it? And sometimes we get close, but never.
Wow, you pulled your Kirby Smart card at the end on that.
Yeah, you did.
Well done. Well done, my friend.
Hey, we learn over here.
Hey, man, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight. Appreciate the update on the Bulldogs. We'll see you on Saturday.
You guys are awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Jake. Appreciate you, man.